Mr. President, Mr. Secretary General, fellow delegates, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. My name is Cameron Lipford. In the U.S., it has taken us many years to get the Constitution right. We are still changing it today. What I'm saying is that no country is perfect. I'm a representative from the Human Rights Watch, and I have been investigating alleged abuses of constitutionally guaranteed rights in the country of Jordan. I'm here speaking today to try to show some truth and to show that laws aren't really what they say they are. I would like to impose economic sanctions on Jordan to help its people regain freedom of speech. Let's begin with what happened just this Friday. A group of 20 protesters were all arrested between July 25th and October 4th. They were protesting for legal and economic reforms, greater political freedoms, and an end to corruption. All reports, they say, was completely peaceful. And yet, all of the protesters were arrested. The Constitution says they have freedom of expression, but that is not true. It is restricted. It has unwritten laws or red lines on reporting about the royal family. The Imprisonment Act was abolished as a penalty for press in 2007. However, in September 2011, a draft law was approved that would fine a journalist up to $85,000 for reporting on corruption without getting their facts straight or sold facts. The government regularly gives warnings and bribes to journalists to keep them from going too far or to keep them from crossing the red lines. If they cross the red lines like they did in July 2011, the police will come into your building and ask you to either stop printing about it or ask you to close down. Taboos, or you could say newspapers, are highly disagreed with. On September 19th of this year, Jordanians gathered to demand the release of 16 people that are arrested for chanting illegal slogans in the streets. The 30 or so demonstrators were accusing the government of strangling freedom of speech. The 16 previously arrested civilians are set to be tried in military court. Mamoun Harrison, the prisoner's defense attorney, said the trial of these young men in military court is both a legal and a human rights violation. Even one of the 30 demonstrators was arrested for supposedly chanting illegal slogans. This all shows you that freedom of speech and expression rights of the people in Jordan are being severely abused. We have the power to do something about this. You see, the freedom of expression is not all that free. It has restrictions, and they are barely allowed to speak out or make a taboo. I say we should all sign a petition and tell the king we're not happy with what's happening, that it is not right at all, and that we should change it so these people truly have their rights. Everyone needs to make a decision now. The rights of the Jordan people are in your hands. Please make the right choice, the choice to put these economic sanctions on Jordan people. And I thank you for your time. Can I sit down?
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Hannah Smart, and I greatly appreciate the opportunity to speak in front of the United Nations General Assembly. As an American, we have the luxury of having a glass of wine, loving who we want, not being discriminated for gender, and for the most part at least, and believing in whatever religion we think we should. I'm a representative from Human Rights Watch, and I have been investigating alleged abuses of constitutionally guaranteed rights in the country of Iran. Our goal is to make sure the people of Iran are treated as equals, no matter their beliefs, ethnicity, or gender. Today, I'm here to convince you that Iran is denying the basic constitutional rights which it promises to its people. In this speech, I'm going to talk about how some specific rights are being violated, and Iran's people are not getting the treatment they deserve. According to execution records given out by Iran itself, people are being executed because they drank an alcoholic beverage or were in possession with it. In Iran, it's illegal to drink alcohol or even just be in possession with it in accordance with Islamic law. But someone shouldn't be executed for drinking alcohol, no matter the religion of the country. If this was true in America, then people would be executed hourly or even minutely. But in Iran, imagine if a woman was caught with alcohol. The punishment would probably be worse. This brings me to our next topic, discrimination of gender. In Iran, men are more dominant than women. Men have more rights than women, even though in the Constitution it says all citizens of Iran are to be treated as equals. Women in Iran have their guardians to make all decisions for them. That could be her mother, father, and even in some cases her brother. If your father wants you to stay at home and act as a family slave, so be it. Forget school. Oh, and once you get married, your husband can tell you to stop going to school and come home and serve him. Forget college or a career. And even if you do have a guardian that will allow you to stay in school, colleges are banning women from getting over 70 different degrees daily. Enough about gender discrimination, though. Now on to our next issue, homosexuality. In Iran, once again according to the Shahira, the Islamic law, only men and women are to marry or to even be in love. But in Iran, like everywhere else in the world, there are people who choose to love and be in a relationship with the same sex. So what does Iran do? They execute them. In more than 6 cases we found in the same execution records that Iran released itself, people were being executed for being homosexual or being accused of it. And a lot of their names were not even mentioned. Killing someone or discriminating someone because of their gender, personal beverage choices, and for loving someone is wrong. Iran needs to give its citizens the freedom and rights it promises. Homosexuality, in this case, can be related to religion, because a lot of them don't believe in it or think it's wrong and goes against human nature. Which brings us to our last and probably one of the most important topics, religion. People in Iran can also be executed for switching to any religion from Islam. We found 8 cases of Ma'arib executions. Ma'arib can be translated to mean enemy of God, and that title is given to all people who either were in any sort of group that is against the government or opposes it, or for anyone that decided Islam is not the religion for them and they wanted to change it. All of these things are supposed to be covered in the Iranian Constitution. The drinking rights under Article 20. If you look at it, it says, all citizens of the country, both men and women, equally enjoy the protection of law and enjoy all human, political, economic, social, and cultural rights. Is it not a human social right to drink a beer at the pub with your friends? Is it not an economic right to sell alcohol in your store? Is it not a cultural right to have the Lord's Supper in some forms of Christianity, in Christianity, with actual wine? In Article 21 of the Iranian Constitution, it plainly says that the government must ensure the rights of women in all respects and accomplish the goal to create a favorable environment for the growth of women's personality and restoration of her rights, both material and intellectual. As for religion, in Article 19 it says that all people of Iran, whatever the ethnic group or tribe to which they belong, enjoy equal rights. And in Article 23 it says that the investigation of individual beliefs is forbidden, and no one may be molested or taken to task simply for holding a certain belief. And yet here we are discussing acts of injustice that don't make any sense. As for homosexuality, is it not just plainly wrong to kill someone for loving someone else? It may be your personal opinion, but most of the world would tell you it is wrong. Should we let Iran disrespect the rights it promises to its people? Should we let Iran murder people? I can't really say, but you can.
Ladies and gentlemen of the United Nations General Assembly, I thank you for allowing me to converse with you today. Today, as I bring to you the attention of the dilemma dealing with right to free expression in Lebanon. In Lebanon, they have the right to free expression, but some have been imprisoned or charged for using their constitutionally guaranteed right in America. In America, we are guaranteed the right to freedom of expression, but unlike Lebanon, we are not in prison for using this right. We are capable for taking, for this for guaranteed, but they are not. I am a representative from the human Rights Watch, and I have been investigating alleged abuses of the constitutionally guaranteed rights in Lebanon. I hope as I leave here today you will be enlightened to the fact that Lebanese government is not as people the right to free expression. Let us start back in the year 1993. The Lebanese press faces a crackdown. In 1993, 4 news organizations were shut down. One of them were accused of investigating sectarian strife by reporting on alleged plan by Prime Minister Hariri to Islamize Lebanon. There was one more shutdown on the same basis. The government threatened to shut down all 45 owned TV stations to gain control. During this, there were criminal charges filed against 4 journalists. All of these stations believed they were using their constitutionally guaranteed right, that they were shut down for what they had said. This shows that the people in Lebanon could not utilize this right. In 1993, these people could not express themselves in the way they wished to do, and now we'll take you to later in the century where this continues to happen. Imagine this: Marcel Khalifi is facing criminal charges. Why, you may ask? Because he used a verse of the Quran in one of his songs. Can you believe that? They say he was insulting his religious values. Now, how would you feel if you were the Lebanese people? Would you be mad, frustrated, or even afraid if you say one bad thing that you would be imprisoned? I know personally that I would be. Let us keep this evidence in mind as we go back into a new century. 3 men, 3 people, just like you and me, are facing criminal charges for posting comments on Facebook that criticize their president, Michael Solomon. And what they are charged with? Libel, defamation, and insulting the president. But these charges are not justified because they're guaranteed rights to free expression. These 3 men were not allowed to use their right to free expression. Their constitution states this freedom is guaranteed, and thus people are being prosecuted and thrown in jail for what they had said, expressed, or said. I urge you help to these people. These people have been right to free expression, yet when they use this right, they may be in prison. Now I may ask yourself, is there something I can do to help?
Mr. President, Mr. Secretary General, fellow delegates, and ladies and gentlemen, my name is Shane Eisenhower, and I deeply appreciate being allowed to speak to you today. And thank you for taking my case into consideration. Rights my fellow Americans and I share, such as discrimination, are taken for granted every day. They are expected instead of appreciated. I'm a representative from Human Rights Watch, and I've been investigating alleged abuses of constitutionally guaranteed rights in the country of Saudi Arabia. I'm speaking to you, members of the General Assembly, on behalf of constant oppression, segregation, and discrimination that women face in Saudi Arabia. It goes against basic human rights, and I'm here to plead for economic sanctions on Saudi Arabia until women are treated truly equal. Today, I'm here to open your eyes to their lack of women's rights and the obvious inequality they face. Now, I will address several cases in which women are punished unfairly, whereas men wouldn't be punished at all. To begin, in my first case, a woman was sentenced to 10 lashes for driving. In a report presented by Forbes, a Saudi Arabian woman was caught driving a car. She was sentenced to the cruel punishment of 10 lashes. If any one of us were to look around on the roads of America, we would see many women drivers, and it is quite acceptable. Unfortunately, for the women of Saudi Arabia, it is not permitted. According to Forbes, the king's religious advisors warned that if women were permitted to drive, it would increase prostitution, pornography, homosexuality, and divorce. Women should be allowed to drive themselves where they need to go instead of relying on men anytime they need to drive anywhere. Otherwise, women are being excluded from everyday necessities that are perfectly capable of using responsibly as they choose. In the next case, a rape victim's punishment was doubled when she spoke out for justice. In a report by the Human Rights Watch, a woman was raped by a gang of 7 men, yet she was the one punished. She was sentenced to 6 months in prison and 100 lashes. The men even recorded the assault on a cell phone, but the video was reportedly ignored. 4 of the men were charged with kidnapping because the prosecutors could not prove rape. She was charged with illegal sexual relations. She then spoke out about her case, seeking justice, and her lashes were increased to 200. This is showing obvious biased treatment to the men's advantage by the court. An innocent woman was raped, but because there were men to testify against her, it could not be proven to the court. A woman's word should be equally as influential as a man's. In my final case, a woman was sentenced to 18 months in prison and 300 lashes for not being accompanied by a male chaperone. Sultan Salim went to file a harassment complaint, and she was charged with making complaints about government officials along with not being accompanied by a male guardian. Her punishment was set to 18 months in prison along with 300 lashes on January 25, 2010. This case is an effect of a very discriminating law that women are forced to follow in Saudi Arabia. They must constantly be accompanied by a male guardian, which is a father, husband, brother, or even son, anytime they leave their home, and they need a guardian's permission for almost anything they do. It restricts women's ability to travel and be independent. They must always rely on a male to be there with them at all times, or they must stay at home. That is expressing male superiority, which is belittling to women. It is discriminating, and women should be trusted to be out in public without a guardian with her at all times. With all these situations in mind, we can summarize these conditions of Saudi Arabian women. Women's rights in Saudi Arabia are non-existent. They must live with the fact that men are superior every day, and it is simply not true. Women deserve the same rights as men and should be treated as equals. A man's wife should be his companion, not his possession. Women should have the right to drive, and their voice should be taken into as much consideration as a man's. They should be able to leave their homes without a male chaperone, and they should be able to make their own decisions without getting consent from a guardian. My plea for economic sanctions now lays in your influential hands. These women cannot speak for themselves because of their oppressive government and their laws. It is up to you to contribute your decision to aid these women in their hope of freedom, desegregation, and true equality. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Welcome, Mr. President and fellow delegates. Thank you for letting me come here today. I'm here to talk to you about the issues in the United Arab Emirates and to convince you to vote for economic sanctions. The United Arab Emirates have been violating their people's freedom of speech. On January 25, 2002, the Human Rights Watch reported the UAE has muzzled their citizens' freedom of speech. We Americans may take our freedom of speech for granted sometimes, but think if you could not say what you thought needed to be said. Yes, we may have regulations and restrictions to our freedom of speech, but we still have it. But that freedom is being violated today in the UAE. I am a representative from Human Rights Watch, and I have investigated alleged abuses of constitutionally guaranteed rights in the United Arab Emirates. I'm here talking to you because I have a goal, and that goal is that you, Mr. President, and fellow delegates will see fit to invoke economic sanctions against the UAE. Today, maybe as we speak, the United Arab Emirates are muzzling their people's freedom of speech. Just consider the UAE or any country without freedom of speech. Without freedom of speech, there would be no peaceful criticism to the government. I have found that the UAE authorities are harassing, arresting, and even throwing activists in jail and disbanding the elected boards of two of the country's most prominent civil society organizations. In the year of the Arab Spring, the United Arab Emirates headed in the opposite direction by criminally prosecuting Emirates who dared to criticize the government. Now, think this over. I have found in the UAE in April, the authorities arrested the activist group known as the UAE 5 after they supposedly posted on an internet forum UAE QR, which authorities have banned. Yet none of these postings on UAE QR went beyond peaceful criticism of the government. This is a clear muzzling of people's freedom of speech. Now I have found that the UAE has further clamped down on freedom of speech by disbanding the elected boards of Jurist Association, a human rights association, and the Teachers Association after they and two other non-governmental organizations co-signed a public appeal for better democracy. Now you're aware of three pieces of evidence supporting the fact that the UAE is violating their freedom of speech. I feel that the UAE is violating its freedom of speech. The UAE is harassing, arresting, throwing activists in jail, and disbanding the electoral boards of the country's civil society organizations. They have arrested the activists of the UAE 5, and they have disbanded the elected boards of Jurist Association and Teachers Association. I will leave you with this. You have heard me tell you the evidence, and now you all must decide. I encourage you to support the call for economic sanctions against the United Arab Emirates. Let's all contribute. Make a decision now to be involved in supporting economic sanctions against the UAE. Thank you.